it's the Worth Knowing live stream. I'm Matt Robeson. We are on the Cliff's Edge channel on YouTube. We're on my Substack, Worth Knowing with Matt Robeson. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch. We're on LinkedIn. We're on some to-be-named platform that some 14-year-old is coming up with in their basement right now. And look, normally I would start off with a little bit of a, I don't know, you could politely call it an opening monologue, a rant. I like to set things up. I like to let people settle in to their seats, get comfortable before introducing the guest of the week. I'm not doing that today. Today, speaking of worth knowing, I want to bring in immediately a guy who's very worth knowing because we have one big, beautiful pile of bullshit that has just passed the U.S. Senate, and we've got to talk about it with this week's guest, Mark Bergman. Mark, welcome.
Hey, Matt.
It's great to see you. And look, this is going to be my kind of cheeky introduction for you. Okay. This is a guy who's worth knowing. If you are a Democrat who has run for higher office, there's a very good chance that you know this guy. Back during my congressional career, when I was managing campaigns and working on the Hill, I like to think of myself as sort of the guy behind the guy. I mostly worked for guys. I never worked for a gal. Just luck of the draw. I like to think of myself as the guy behind the guy. Well, Mark is the guy behind the guy behind the guy. He's the one, if you've ever wondered who's really in charge here, it's Mark Bergman. Mark, I always turn to you for messaging advice and for quick reactions. This is my barometer for how much of a threat I was facing from some breaking news when I was like, whether on the campaign side or the congressional side. Here was my barometer for it. If Mark didn't perceive a threat, I knew I was fine because you see threats everywhere. You are my, oh boy, what's the downside risk here guy? Okay, so it's passed 51-40, tie-breaking vote from J.D. Vance, live from Greenland. What is your initial reaction to this? Are you tenting your fingers like Mr. Byrne as a campaign guru who is engaged on, I won't say which campaigns right now, but you were engaged on campaigns right now? Are you tenting your fingers about this? Is this an opportunity, or is this just an American disaster?
It's both. It's an opportunity for the Democratic Party, but it's a disaster for the country. The Republicans are clearly lacing up concrete shoes, and they are putting themselves in a politically very difficult situation in a year and a half, and we're going to start to see it in these off-year elections in Virginia, in New Jersey, where the Republicans are in deep, deep trouble. And I think that you're going to see this bill be a very big albatross around the Republican Party's necks, cutting Medicaid, closing rural hospitals, cutting entitlements. This is going to be a big disaster for them. They have walked the plank for the president, and now they're going to have to hope they can swim.
I like what you did there. You kept a real through line on that visual metaphor. Let's talk about putting on those concrete galoshes there. I'd like to read you from some statements here. Here is Profiles Encourage Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, who said, "We can't be cutting healthcare for working people and for poor people in order to constantly give special tax treatment to corporations and other entities." The Medicaid stuff in here, I think, is bad. I think it's bad. Mark, are you going to be able to feature this in an ad coming soon to a television or YouTube channel near you?
Yeah, taking people off healthcare and taking their healthcare away is not good. I mean, you and I both worked in Congress.
Bring this up. You're going to PTSD me now?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, do it.
We were there for Obamacare, and the whole message was that people were going to lose their healthcare. And it was devastating. This is what's going to happen yet again to the GOP. They are taking healthcare away, and it's going to be worse for their own voters. In rural America, hospitals are going to close because they've taken away the ability for hospitals to pay for keeping themselves open through taking away the provider tax. This is going to be a disaster for rural America and healthcare, the ability to get served healthcare all across the country. It's going to really hurt the Republican Party long term. It's going to be a disaster for them. And my gut is 2 years from now, They're going to be thrilled to repeal a lot of these provisions once Democrats take control of both chambers.
I want to, I don't want to step on some things. Okay, here's what's about to happen here. Mark and I are both dads, okay? And we both have dad responsibilities, which involve camp pickups. Luckily, our camp pickups, I don't know why I'm telling people all the sausage making, but here it is. Our camp pickups are offset by a little bit. So Mark is going to disapparate at around 2:30. So I'm just going to cram things in while we've got them. And then I have got some stuff teed up for all of you. So I don't want to step on all of that. And I want to, by the way, just a little preview. We've run this segment the last couple of weeks. I think it's kind of fun. I call it Matt GPT, where people can pose any question they want in the chat, bring up any issue they want, and I will give a well-sourced answer based on my long experience in politics. Plus, I'll hallucinate a little bit. So all of that is coming up. Feel free to pop questions and issues into the chat for Mark or for me. But in the meantime, I just wanted to, first of all, show a comment here from Early Love 2023. I love these handles so much. They're so great. Alligator Alcatraz, the first USA concentration camp. I don't want to step on that. I'm going to get to that one later. I want to bookmark that for later. I'm going to quickly say, no, we experimented that with the Japanese internment camps in World War II, but this one is certainly horrible. Also want to say hi to all of the New York City peeps. I am a New York City guy myself. So, and I also want to point out to Ronald here, I'm not Cliff. Mark and I actually are both old friends of Cliff's. We know Cliff. We intersect. We're like ships that crashed in the night. We're like different circles in the Venn diagram of Democratic politics. We intersected off and on for years and years and years. I'm Matt Robeson. Cliff, I texted him. He might pop on. He might do a surprise here. I don't know. All right. Back to enough of the housekeeping. Let me read you another Republican quote coming soon to a TV near you. Senator Tom Tillis. His office published an analysis concluding that the Senate budget that has now passed would have a $32 billion impact on the North Carolina healthcare system and threaten insurance coverage for 663,000 Medicaid expansion beneficiaries in the state, about 1 in 16 North Carolinians. Quote, what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid? Because the funding's not there anymore, guys. Now, when I worked in the New Hampshire State Senate, one of the things that I did was I helped to coordinate the passage of the Medicaid expansion in that state. At the time, we hit about 10% of the North Carolina figure. We benefited about 10% of that, about 60 to 70,000 people. So you're talking about well north of 500,000 people. Mark, can you make use of the quote from the suddenly retired Tom Tillis?
I mean, if Tom Tillis is growing a conscience, that's how bad this bill is. Because, I mean, this is a guy who is, as MAGA as they get. And he's not MAGA enough for this party. And he knows how rough this is for his home state. It's going to be rough for states all across the country. You're talking about throwing not just able-bodied working people off of their healthcare plan. You're talking about throwing children off of their healthcare plan. This is not going to just affect adults. This is going to affect kids. This is going to affect the CHIP program, which provides health insurance for poor children all across the country. This is going to affect state legislative budgets. It's going to affect your local taxes. It's going to affect your state taxes because there are going to be huge holes and huge deficits in state budgets all across the country because they're basically losing federal funding. This is a political nightmare for the Republicans. It's a nightmare for the country, and it's going to take a year and a half for them to lose power, but they will, and then we'll have to come into Congress and fix it.
Shortly after the 2009 summer of healthcare town halls. These two dudes showed up in black suits with sunglasses, and they did this flashy thing into my face. And I don't remember anything about that experience anymore. But you just mentioned it. I did a Men in Black reference. What? That's culturally too old?
Yeah,
it's only hitting our demographic? Fuck. All right. You brought it up. It felt to me like, and this is something that Tom Tillis said in his screed on the Senate floor. I think it was Sunday, not Saturday. So the sequence here for anyone who's been avoiding the news, and I think someone was saying in the chats here that they've been avoiding the news. Here it is. The Cynthia Rice. One of my favorite commenters, and I love the handle because it's like Ohio State, it's the Ohio State University. So if you've been avoiding the news, the sequence here apparently was Tillis says this bill is horrible. It's going to absolutely hammer the people that I was elected to represent. I'm not doing it. And then Trump went online and eviscerated him. And then he said, by an amazing coincidence, I can't defend this. I'm going to retire. Tillis made this point in his Senate remarks. He said, this is going to reverberate, I'm paraphrasing here, the same way the lie of the century did. His words, not mine, when he was referring to President Obama saying, if you like your healthcare, you can keep it. To me, when you and I were living as staffers through the nightmare of that healthcare town hall summer, where we were just getting absolutely, slobber knockered by like the constant, drumbeat of, when are you going to hold a town hall? We want to ambush you. Would you please show up? Yeah. It was really horrible. And it was tough. We were working for a Democratic member of Congress who had voted for this damn thing. I love the ACA, but politically, we were in hell because of it. And it felt to me like the reason it was so bad was loss aversion. It was because they were able to successfully message that Democrats were taking something away from you.
Yes.
And to me, that seems like the biggest Achilles heel of everything you just rattled off, which is a lot and it's important stuff. The fact that you are taking away healthcare coverage from 17 million Americans, many of them children, that feels like the secret poison. The secret sauce.
Yeah, it's going to be a poison pill for the Republicans. The real challenge will be that people are going to hear about it in their local news over and over again, not just about the loss of health care, but that their local taxes are going to have to go up to make up the portion of this bill that's coming out of states' funding. Medicaid is a federal program, but it is administered by the states. And when there is loss of federal funding for Medicaid, it is effectively a state budget hole. And that is going to really impact programs in the state. It'll impact your public education. It'll impact everything. He calls it a big, beautiful bill, but it's going to be a big, beautiful disaster for the Republicans and for the country. It's going to be a political albatross on the Republican Party. They know it. They're not stupid. They're well aware of it, but they have no choice because the president has made abundantly clear, if you step out of line, you will face a primary and you will lose your seat. And the Republicans in the House and in the Senate are not going to step out of line. I mean, they've made an example of Tom Tillis, and I guarantee you when this bill comes back to the House, no one's going to step out of line.
I remember the first time when Tom Tillis was named Mark Sanford, and they made an example of him in the first Trump term. It's like, yeah, go ahead, fuck around and find out. See what happens if you anger the Trump. Speaking of primaries, I want to talk about the renewal of the Trump-Musk feud that reignited over the last couple of days. Musk has been going on a Jeremiad, which is $1,000 word, which basically means screed, on X, going after the Republican budget bill. Mostly his beef seems to be with the energy provisions. He is, after all, kind of a clean tech guy. It's sort of his bread and butter. He relies on that shit. And He's pretty unhappy about it. But the key thing that I wanted to ask you about from sort of a campaign mechanics standpoint is he's saying that he is going to back opponents of people who support Trump's bill in primaries. They're going to see their faces, anyone who supports the bill, emblazoned on Pinocchio posters. He's going to back GOP rebel Thomas Massey's reelection effort, and he's basically going to try to be the Joker in next year's midterm elections. Does this matter?
Yes, it does matter, because the only way that Republicans will get courage is if they have campaign donations to back up that courage. And, Elon Musk, is just as popular inside the Republican base as Donald Trump. You see that in polling. We see it in Democratic polling, where if there's one person that's more unpopular than the president among Democrats, it's Elon Musk. So, I mean, they are both very polarizing figures. And if Trump and Musk are going to go to war inside the Republican Party, that only accrues to our benefit. So have at it.
Right. I mean, it's certainly not a bad thing, according to polls, to be able to add a little bit of Musk sauce to everything you're saying. I mean, for normie humans, he polls worse than Trump.
Yes.
Inside the Republican base, it's fine, but great. Anytime they're going at it. Can we run that same playbook that was run at us in 2009 and 2010? Sorry, man. I just got to bring it back up. Can we run that back at them? How much of an opportunity is there to connect this? Because what I'm seeing a lot of in the chat, in addition to some concern about what's going on in Miami with the postponement of elections. This is a good one from this is a good one from Cynthia. What you're seeing is concern that it's well, is this going to break through? Are the Medicaid cuts not really going to be felt in time for the midterms? Are people, if there's kind of a cascade, a waterfall effect from this federal budget impact to state budgets, that's going to wipe people out on taxes or cause loss of healthcare worker jobs? Are people going to feel it, and are they going to be able to connect the dots? The question is, Republicans were so successful at connecting the dots and the fear around the ACA back to Democrats in Congress. Are we going to be able to effectively do that to them around this bill, or is it too deep in the weeds?
Well, I think reliving the Democratic political nightmare of 2009, 2010. Remember, we were coming off the Great Recession, the worst economic catastrophe of our lifetimes up until that point. And our focus, rather than on rebuilding the economy in the eyes of the voter, it became about you're providing health care to people who didn't have it. You're talking about accessibility to health care. We looked like we were not focused on what people were focused on. They were focused on their pocketbook, and we were focused on giving health care to people who didn't have it. There was a disconnect. I think you're going to have a similar situation this time, where people are still angry about prices. They're still angry about affordability of their housing. They're angry about the affordability of childcare, as someone who's about to go pick their kid up at an expensive camp. They're angry about food prices. They're angry about gas prices. And here you have Donald Trump giving tax breaks to billionaires while taking people off of their health care and not doing a damn thing to affect food prices, gas prices, childcare prices, or housing prices. And at the end of the day, that's what's going to take the Republicans down, is they were elected to fix prices and they did anything but.
As the old joke goes, funny you should mention, I want to talk about that laser beam focus on prices. I have a thesis about this that I wrote up on Substack, which coincidentally, thank you, Jim Williams. We're displaying here my Substack, worthknowing.substack.com. Appreciate. Oh, and Chipmunk Milk, we are talking about the Republican budget, i.e. the big, beautiful bill. But I'm switching gears real quick. I want to talk Mamdani. I had a thesis that I wrote up, which is, look, the Democratic establishment. Are you a member of the Democratic establishment?
I don't know. They never let me in.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Last week's guest, Amanda Littman, wrote up a really interesting piece on Substack in which she pointed out something that I think is underappreciated, which is there is no Democratic establishment. I mean, there's a fuck ton of people who think they're in the Democratic establishment, but there's not like, a get together where they all, I mean, like, there's DFA, there's all that shit, right? Like there are confabs of like big donors and all that, but like, it's not the DNC. I'm sorry. I love the DNC. It's not the DNC, right? It's not like there is not one Democratic establishment. Like this is like an adhocracy here. So, but to the extent that there is one, there was a little bit of a 4-alarm freak out about Mamdani's victory in the New York City, just confirmed just now, breaking news in the New York City mayoral Democratic Party primary. And I had a thesis about this, which is, look, I'm not that worried about this. Like, I don't think people were voting for him for the socialism part of it. I think they were voting for him for the change and the focus on prices. What do we know from the last presidential election? Voters care a lot about how much stuff costs. It took my whole thing was, it's the old 1992 James Carville Clinton campaign haiku. Change versus more of the same. The economy's stupid, and don't forget healthcare. What did Mamdani talk about? Focused like a shark with a frickin' laser beam on his head. Talked about costs. He talked about free public transit, freeze the rent, city-owned grocery stores, cost. You want to say that his solutions are socialist? Sure. I mean, they are. They are a little socialist. But at least he's talking about the right set of things. So, okay, that was my theory. But there's a bit of an alternative theory out there, which is the Chris Hayes, Ezra Klein conversation they just had on the New York Times site, which is like, no. This is because this guy is a social media communications genius. It's because he was amazing at TikTok-style portrait videos where he's just like, he's talking, he's great. He's like great at this man on the street interview thing. All right, you are the best Democratic communications specialist that I'm currently interviewing on my live stream. Because I know some others and I don't want to offend them, especially because they may be future guests. Which of those two is it?
It's a combination of A and B. His message was good. Also, we always talk about this as being about issues and about we don't talk about the intangibles. Like, look at the guy's smile. He looks friendly. He looks accessible. He looks likable. I like the guy when I see those videos. I don't agree with what he says, but I like him. And I don't understand why people are scratching their heads why Andrew Cuomo didn't win. This is a guy who sexually harassed dozens of women, resigned his office in disgrace, looks like a guy that I would be afraid to talk to if I saw on the street. He's terrifying, and he is not approachable. And it's like, why are we scratching our heads that he lost to somebody who looked friendly, young, and change-oriented, talking about the things I care about? Like, I don't understand why people are surprised at the outcome of the election. I mean, and if you look at the polling, he started the race at 38%. He ended the race at 42%. Sometimes he's a well-known figure. Like, sometimes where you start is where you end if you're a well-known figure. All it took was one candidate to catch fire, which is what happened, and he lost. He has a high floor and a very low ceiling. He never could get to 50 in any poll, and no surprise he lost. Mamdani is going to be he's clearly a social media star. He is talking about the right issues, and he looks like a friendly, approachable guy. And I believe mayor's races are about somebody that embodies the city and embodies the spirit of the city. And that's what mayor's races are. Governor's races are about people that embodies the spirit of a state. And at that moment in time, Mamdani embodied the spirit of New York primary voters, and Cuomo did not. He was the past. So
I just want to point out for people your comment there about the spirit of the city, the spirit of the state. For people who don't know, you're hearing from Mark Bergman, who has been the right-hand man to two prominent American governors in the last 10 years for communications. You know what you're talking about. I, on the other hand, am a native New Yorker. And I got to say, I'm not a socialist, but yeah, Gristedes sucks. And if you're talking about like, let's have city-owned grocery stores where we're going to like not like price gouge you, that sounds kind of attractive. Like,
yeah.
You know, yeah. It just, but, and to me, I thought the good news version of this for Democrats was, hey, okay, you know, you don't have to buy into the whole DSA thing. You could just take the laser focus on costs and take that to the bank. I mean, is that a blueprint for Democrats for the next year?
Let me give you an example on the other end of the spectrum who does this. A congresswoman from the Pacific Northwest, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez. You may not like what she believes,
yes,
but she talks about issues that matter to working people. She talks about why she brings her kids to daycare and there's regulations that say they can't peel bananas for the children. She talks about how people can't fix tractors in their hometown because John Deere has a means where they control whether replacement parts can be bought. Like, the future for the Democratic Party, hopefully there is one, is entirely based on us talking not up here about these big policy issues and stats and GDP, but talking about the economy in a way that really connects to people. Grocery stores, $8 halal versus $10 halal. I watched him do a video about that, you know, talking about that lives the same experience that everyone else lives. And it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. If you connect to people at a human level, like, you know, we're Simpsons fans, like McBain saying, I like the human touch. Like, Democrats need to become human beings again, where we talk to people as if they are us. And we can't, and Joe Biden and that administration failed to do so. And I think we have a real opportunity with younger, more, you know, dynamic candidates who have lived experiences like everyone else.
I really agree with that. And you know my oft-told joke that Democrats is a word derived from the original Greek, and it means repeats facts smugly. That's something we have to get out of. Look, speaking of getting out, you've got like 60 seconds before your hard stop. You create umpteen ads and messaging programs for candidates. Are you taking any lessons learned from just kind of a technical standpoint from the social media approach of Mamdani? Are we going to see more of that kind of thing?
I hope so, because I mean, I think the future, I mean, listen, I love to make TV ads. They're great, but people are consuming media in a different way, and they're consuming it, you know, kids scroll through Instagram and TikTok, and that's how they watch TV. And you're going to have to create more authentic communication that's native to how people, you know, communicate, how they live and consume entertainment. You ask our children what CBS, NBC, and ABC are, they wouldn't know what they are. They would say, I know Netflix, I know YouTube, and they would know like those channels. And that is the future of communication. It's not going to be network television. The future of communication lives on platforms like this, like YouTube, and, you know, like streaming apps. And we're going to have to create communication that's native to those, to the way people are consuming entertainment.
All right, look, priorities. We're dads first. You, my friend, should go take care of your kids because you have lived experience. So we're going to get you out of here. Mark Bergman, everyone. And I will have to have you back. I'm going to boot you from the stage so you don't have to do something awkward on the exit out. And look, per Mark's point, I'm going to try something here. I did this a little bit when I subbed in for Cliff on his Wednesday show with him and David Schuster. At a certain point, Cliff had to leave. Same thing, dad responsibilities. David had to leave, and I was like, all right, I got to take us out to the end of the show here. I got to cover another 10 minutes or so. I can do that. Not a problem. Turned out that went on for half an hour because we are in a new media environment. Even when Mark and I were working together, you would never do a show like this. You would never do it, right? Even 5 years ago, even 2 years ago, when I was helping Cliff build the Cliff's Edge YouTube channel, which I was doing a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of contributing. I mean, there was just like a way you did these things, and it has so changed. So anyway, I am going to experiment here a little bit with just doing this final portion of the show on my own. There are a few things I want to hit. I brought some slides for you. I brought some numbers for you, brought some facts for you. And I encourage people, I will try. Oh, yes. I've got a sparkly wink. I will try to keep glancing at the chats because I still very much encourage people, jump in, throw things at me. I'm happy to pick up on the threads that you want to start and that you want to follow. But let me start off with this. I want to talk a little bit about where Mark was leaving us off there, about the messaging. Okay, this bill is a reality now. We've got to live with it. We've got to make lemonade out of this horrible lemon. And let's be clear, and I'll get to some of the facts on this in a second. Let's be clear that this is a horrible, lemon, gosh, it's a metaphor that doesn't do justice to the disaster that's going to happen here. Millions of Americans who need food are going to lose access to food. Millions of Americans, 17 million Americans who need access to healthcare are going to lose access to healthcare, food and medicine. This is the Republican cruelty bill. But let's talk about how to win by running against it. Let's talk about how to fight it. And I want to show something up on the screen here. I'm going to see if I can do this. I'm going to see if I can do this. All right. Tarnation. Here we go. Bear with me for a moment because this is a little bit of innovation. So the first point I want to raise, this is from Navigator Research. This is fresh off the presses this morning. And they're giving some guidance to all of us how to talk about this. And I want us to follow it. I want to try my best myself to follow it. I want to learn from this because the more of us do this on platforms like LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Substack, the better it echoes. So the first point that I wanted to show everyone is that calling it the one big beautiful bill, that's a trap. That's what Donald Trump wants to call it. Just call it the Republican budget. Just call it the Republican budget plan. Makes a difference. It's a small difference. Net support, 4 points, but that does pop. It does matter. And you're seeing the difference here in independence. So that's number one. Just adding the One Big Beautiful Bill Act makes the number of people who are uncertain about what to say about it, makes that rise by 6%. Why? Because it's like you don't know that much about this, right? So you hear one big beautiful bill, it's confusing, right? It's confusing. All right. So that's point number one. Point number two. The reason it's confusing is that one of the most misunderstood, underappreciated factors in American politics over the last 10 years is just how few people are paying attention. I cannot emphasize this enough. I wrote an entire article for Washington Monthly about a year ago, making this exact point. I threw a bunch of numbers into it. The proportion of Americans who even claim that they're paying regular attention to the news has dropped 13 points in the last 8 years. It's just over about a third of us even claim when pollsters ask, oh yeah, pay a lot of attention to the news. I mentioned this last week that a pollster friend of mine who actually works for Navigator, Ian Smith, great guy, came on my pod to explain that in this focus group he'd done of swing voters, they were spending about 10 minutes a week taking in news. So what do you find about the Republicans' budget? Only 1 in 4 Americans are hearing a lot about it. So the downside here is we refer to it as the one big beautiful bill, and we immediately are kind of, it's like a speed bump in our messaging because we're immediately setting ourselves back. We're immediately making it harder to be clear about what's going on and what we're talking about. But there's also an opportunity here. There's an opportunity to define this. And so, you know, I just want to bring home to people that overall, 24% have heard a lot about this. Democrats have actually heard the most. Independents, not very much at all. So, again, it's an opportunity among those independents to really make some headway on something that they care about. Non-MAGA Republicans, only 14%. These are gettable Republicans or Republicans who might be persuaded to stay home in 2026. And yes, I've been monitoring the discussion about the postponement of the elections in Miami. I don't think that this is necessarily a prelude to a broader cancellation or postponement of elections nationwide, but I hear you on the stress about it. I really, really do. But we're going to continue to assume that there will be elections in 2026. I want to follow up on another point. This is, again, Navigator research. If you're listening to this later, by the way, you're hearing this as an audio, you chose to listen to it on the Beyond Politics podcast, and you're not seeing the video, maybe switch over to the video version on Spotify or check this out. We'll rerun it on YouTube. But I want to follow up on a point that I was making with Mark earlier, that the loss of coverage and higher costs from the Medicaid cuts are deeply concerning, but it's the coverage loss that elicits greater intensity of reaction. And you see the numbers here on the left. The very concerning is what they're pointing out. Now, you make both points, right? Healthcare costs increased significantly, very concerning, 50%. But losing coverage, including seniors in nursing homes and hundreds of thousands of kids, that rises 6 points. And that's across the board here, by the way. It's among Democrats, independents, and Republicans, especially non-MAGA Republicans. It's even 9 points among MAGA Republicans. And that goes back to that basic psychology of loss aversion. People really value things that they have that they might lose. That's why the Obama, we can quibble about it. And believe me, it drove me up the wall. I was a congressional staffer working for a member of Congress who was running for the U.S. Senate in 2010, fighting for his life. I had to bat down so many of these charges of, well, Obama lied. It was the lie of the year. Okay, I don't want to relitigate that. But the reason that resonated was the sense of loss, that you're going to lose what you had. Let's remember that. This is about 17 million Americans, as of the most recent estimate of the version that actually passed. 17 million Americans losing access to healthcare. Finally, let me just add one last one here. One last one. This is where the opportunity is. Remember the haiku, the Clinton haiku. Change versus more of the same. The economy stupid. And don't forget healthcare. The reason I've already talked about change. I've talked about how Mondani, what did he do well? Change and the economy. But the economy really means costs for people. That's why healthcare resonates so much. It's the number one source of anxiety for people. A lot of that is cost anxiety. The idea that your whole life will be upended, not just by feeling terrible and having a threat to your health, but also by the possibility that you won't be able to afford it. Your family will get wiped out. That's why the number one policy idea that emerged from the whole 2020 presidential cycle, the Democratic side, was from Bernie Sanders. I'm not a Bernie guy, but his idea to wipe out medical debt, to have the federal government just pay for it, which would not have cost a lot. That's why that was the reason I just lost my train of thought is I have a surprise for people here. But that's why that was the best idea of that cycle. So this is our opportunity. Americans trust us on healthcare. We should drive that message into the ground. Nail them with it. Speaking of which, here's a guy who loves nothing better than nailing Republicans when they richly deserve it. Cliff Schechter.
I don't know if I'd say I like to nail them, but
listen, man. Wow. So we're going to start off like that, huh? All right.
I didn't know this was an OnlyFans. I thought it was joining like a live stream. But
you put the blue in Blue Amp, my friend. Well, first
we're
of
very
all,
blue at Blue Amp, and we put the amplify in Amp, if you know what I'm saying.
All right. So listen. So first of all, you missed our mutual friend Mark Bergman.
Bergman was on here,
dude. I told you missed Bergman.
I know, but I must have. Oh man.
We'll ratify for all of our viewers that Mark Bergman is the real frickin' deal when it comes to hotshot communications consultants that Democrats definitely listen to. That's number one.
Are we going to put that? Well, you want me to ratify? I mean, I went on a car trip with him from the DC, Virginia area. If I say how long ago it was, it's going to frighten me. But let's just say it was in the 2000 aughts, we'll call it, out to Kentucky because we both wanted to work on these two campaigns. And so I got to take the sort of convertible top down ride across the country. We were like Thelma and Louise, except for like totally not like Thelma and Louise because we're guys and we weren't being persecuted in any way. But otherwise we did and acted like idiots and both were getting into politics. And here we are. I can't believe I missed it.
Well, speaking of driving off a cliff, you see what I did there?
I think I see it.
Yeah, I have two potential topics to bring up here. And I'm going to let you, as the founder of our feast here,
the founder of our feast,
that's Dickens, man.
I thought you said feces is what I thought you said.
Founder of our feces.
I was like, geez, man. Well, I can't come in here. You say I'm nailing Republicans. I'm finding feces. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is apparently this is the hottest show on YouTube because we're not afraid to make it super, super interesting. All right. So I'm going to give you dealer's choice. We are talking about the Republican budget, and we can run down why and how it is a disaster for America and how we can turn it into a disaster for Republicans. Or we could talk about camp cruelty, the alligator Alcatraz that what one of our commenters here, Early Love 2023, was pointing out earlier in the show, is a definite topic of conversation. How
can we talk about other potential countries to live in? Let's say
sure, man.
No,
so you choose.
Well, I choose both. I'd like to talk only because the budget, I don't want to go into stuff that everybody is saying. But I want to speak about some things quite honestly for people and put messaging out there that hopefully they will run with. But the other thing is I was hoping, as this is your show and you're running it, that you would give me a chance to tell people who maybe didn't hear it when I was on Hal Sparks yesterday or other places, see it in my newsletter about our, what should we call it? Well, we'll call it what's called the Sound Check Fund that we have created at SUBSTACK for people because I want people to apply to it. And I thought maybe I could do that.
Do it.
So I'm not going to go into all the histrionics, though I know Matt wants me to, but I'm just going to say that I and many others like me grew very tired of waiting for institutions, billionaires, other people to do the things they've said they're going to do, which is to support infrastructure on our side. I've told you guys before, I found uniquely that SUBSTACK has been a place and that's why so many Democratic electeds, media personalities, and others that have a common sense point of view are flocking there. You know, a classic example is if they let you keep your data. Let's say you've got 10,000 subscribers, you have their emails. To store that online on an email list somewhere with a professional list would cost you a whole bunch of money, but they do that for you. In other words, it provides the infrastructure that is not being provided by the folks in our party and on the left, and I don't know why. And therefore, I came to the conclusion with Blue Amp having the luck that we've had, having the kind of good fortune to grow into a large platform, that we're starting a fund. It's a creators fund, and there are very few requirements. You do have to have a Substack, so that is one of them, but you can be more active on other platforms. But it's part of it is my belief in Substack as where we can create an ecosystem of independent creators, thinkers, to start overwhelming corporate media, which is dying. And so we've created this fund. We've already put aside 5 figures into it from Blue Amp. We've started. We already told the first 2 people that applied to it that they've been, or first 2 that we picked, that they've been awarded grants. And it's a couple things. You get a grant, and it's not going to be life-changing money. It's going to be money to help you build your platform, because we need everybody's an influencer these days, whether you want to be or not. You're influencing your 300 Facebook friends, if with what you say. And so we want to help people build those platforms, so we have more of an ecosystem on the left. We're going to use our good fortune in that, our newsletter at this point is being read by, I think, by about 460,000, maybe more, each one we send out, that we're going to promote these other creators and make sure that they can grow their presence and help in any other way we can with advice and that kind of thing, because I'm tired of people talking about creating non-corporate, independent media, creating an ecosystem. I'm tired of, and I'm even tired of some big creators out there, and I'm not going to rip on them right now, but probably I will at some point, who love to talk about creating this and then don't help us create something. And you find out they spent all their money on, building their own thing and whatever. Well, we're putting our money where our mouths are, because we're starting off with a 5-figure contribution to this out of our own money. And now there's a lot of people that have bigger platforms even than we have, who maybe will feel like the assholes they should if they don't go and either do something of the same sort or give to the fund that we're talking about. It's going to be fully transparent. It's going to be run, it's a super PAC run by the FEC. So there's literally everything will be right out there for people to see. And I am going to put a link in here, because I'm hoping we won't be able to accept everybody, but we're also eventually going to put up a donate button for people that want to give small amounts. I do have 1 or 2 funders I'm going to talk to. They're great people that I'm hoping will come and help enhance it. But we're doing this thing. That's all I'm saying is we're not waiting anymore. Fascism is fascism. Democracy is democracy. I want my kids growing up in a democracy. I'm tired of and it's maybe this is the segue into the big, atrocious, the badly built, bleach blonde, big, beautiful bill. I think Jasmine Crockett might call it. And they're going to use this bill, and they've been able to get away with it because of crappy corporate media that won't cover what this actually does. Like, well, the 2.2% cut in blah, 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 blah. They got it barely through, as they always do, with 50 votes, just like they always win Supreme Court decisions 5-4 for the most part, or 6-3 and whatever. It is going to kill people, which is what you should tell people, quite honestly. Don't be afraid to use the language. And Lisa Murkowski has voted off the island. I'm tired at this point of the corrupt deal she made for Alaska, which I think may have been thrown overboard because I'm not sure it was legal. But it's really pretty simple. They are taking money to give to billionaires from your Medicaid so you can die.
Actually, can I quote? This is from a Democratic senator. We can't be cutting healthcare for working people and for poor people in order to constantly give special tax treatment for corporations and other entities. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. That was Republican Senator Josh Hawley on Saturday before he voted for the bill. So first of all, I hope you'll all join me in saying, and I mean this as a very serious political analyst, fuck you, Josh Hawley. Second of all,
I will absolutely. Can I do his fake run? When he, when he puts up the big fist of fury, and then there's the slightest bit of trouble, and the guy that looks like he was born in khakis and docksiders, like, tries to run away from everybody of all the trouble that he stirred up that killed police officers. Again, we need to learn how to put these things plainly, because Republicans put stuff in this kind of language when they're lying about us, right? Oh my, they kill live babies and stuff like that are just absolute lies. Why aren't we willing to put in honest language? They will cut Medicaid. Medicare there will be less funding for it. We're going to go further in debt. I wonder, what they're going to raid for that. People will get Medicare will have less funding for it, so people will lose some of their benefits. They will die. They have chosen to kill people. Absolutely. To give people like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel more money. Well, that's it. That's all you have to share with me.
Let me double down, because you actually came in. What I was doing right as you came in was I was showing some polling from our friends at Navigator, which is the child of Global Strategy Group, which you worked at many years ago.
I did.
Those respected folks in polling. So this is very legit. And I was basically pointing out, a few things. One, don't call it the one big beautiful bill. That confuses people. Call it the Republican budget. Number two, people don't know about it.
I would actually call
it an opportunity.
The Republican death sentence, but go ahead.
Sure.
Remember when they come up killing grandma? Remember when they sold all that crap? This will kill grandma. So why don't we tell people that?
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry, Matt.
Number two.
I'm pissed.
Number three, quote Josh Hawley. Number four, really emphasize that this is about people losing things they have, losing their healthcare, losing their food. And really, finally, number five, lean in to the healthcare part of this, where Democrats are deeply trusted. But, just to build on your point, I think what's really ugly about this, what really sucks about it, is that this is ultimately a reflection of everything that Donald Trump is about. It's about corruption and cronyism, helping your friends and screwing everyone else.
Yeah.
Because look at the deal that they cut to try to soften the blow politically, not in fact, but politically, for the cuts that they're going to apply through Medicaid to hospitals, right? They increased the fund that they created from $25 billion to $50 billion to soften the blow to those hospitals, but they did it only for rural hospitals. So what does that do to the cities? Who lives in the cities? Trump,
I know.
Do you remember that headline from the New York Post from the 70s?
Ford says screw you when Ford says
drop
screw
dead
you to New York, or drop dead, right?
Drop dead. So this is drop dead to the Democrats in cities.
But you know what? It's still not even enough money for a lot of these rural hospitals, the money they added. That's the thing, is a lot of that is political cover. Now, we'll save some of them. But a representative I got to meet, who's a terrific guy, he may be the only Democrat representing Kentucky, Representative McGarvey from the Louisville area. So yes, a city, and that's why he got elected there. He's also a great guy and a great politician. But he was talking the other day, and again, in the end, they are cutting money from cities, but cities tend, a lot of these cities also have people in the suburbs who have wealth and have, will be able to make up some of these resources, especially, Jefferson County around Louisville, which is Democratic and whatever. And so there will be some ways that they can make up some of that. He was speaking out and being concerned about, he was pointing out how this rural county, and I wish I remember which one it was, and I should know because I lived there for a bit in Louisville, 102 over, how it was already going to be a 27-minute, he'd done the exact calculation, drive to the hospital. But because one of these hospitals was going to have to close, it was now going to go up to about 40-something minutes. So your life is on the line, and it's going to take you 40-something minutes to get to the hospital. You're going to die. And he didn't have to do that, because these are rural folks who aren't even voting for him. And that, to me, is what shows the difference between the two parties, is one side tries to punish the people that vote against them. And the other side, us, we actually try to help people who vote to have themselves killed. There's no reason he has to worry about those rural voters. They aren't his voters. He doesn't have to care at all. But you know what? He's a human being, unlike these people we're up against on the other side. The absolute lack of decency is astounding.
It is absolutely astounding.
And I see that. I see what you're saying here, Mark Gauci. We think blue states will withhold federal transfers. I mean, it should be interesting. California's already threatened it. California being the 4th biggest economy in the world, and New York being like the 10th or 11th, something like that, have a lot of leverage over those 2 states. Have a ton of leverage over the federal government, and I want them to use it. But I think the problem now is more that it's also about counties, right? Because as I said, Jefferson County is more wealthy. So it's not just as easy a breakdown as it used to be, like, post-Civil War, North and South. I live in Hamilton County around Cincinnati. We have one of the best children's hospitals in the country, usually ranked. I don't know if you guys are no, actually it was a different hospital, but you know what? We've also one of the best at the University of Cincinnati here. For any of you who are football fans and watched a game where there was a Buffalo Bills player who literally died on the field when he was hit, they took him to that hospital and they revived him and saved his life. And he is alive today because of some of the incredible guys. So Cincinnati, Hamilton County around us that votes 65%, whatever it is for Democrats. The city of Cincinnati votes 80% for Democrats. We'll be okay. But some of these rural areas, they're killing their own people, and they're going to do that because it's the Peter Thiel theory. They trick their own folks into thinking they care about them, but they're just they believe in that old. They read an Ayn Rand book, and it literally it seems like they used it as, pardon my whatever, for masturbatory material for I don't know how long, because they believe all that crap.
Cliff Schechter putting the blue back in blue amp, baby.
I do it. There are takers, and there are those that give and those that take in their worldview, and a lot of their own voters, they know. This is why Mark Gauci brought up the thing about blue states, because blue states overall give a lot more and red states take a lot more. So
I want to point out one other thing here, which is there's going to be a lot of discussion about the debt part of this, which, look, it doesn't resonate with most voters. People don't care. But I just, since you invoke Peter Thiel, I want to just bring up one aspect of what is very clearly going on here. And that is the $4 trillion that is going to be added to the debt over the next decade through this bill means that our country is going to have to borrow more money to service that debt. Like, if you had to borrow money to pay off your credit card, same deal. That means we're going to have to pay between $600 and $700 billion more in additional interest payments. Now, okay, I'm sorry to give people dry numbers like this. And every time I give a whole bunch of dry economic numbers, I have to announce that we're doing our Do the Numbers segment. And here it is.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
But here's what it means.
You have much better introductory segments than I do. I just would like to point out.
This is you now own. That little clip that I made, you own it too. It's in your media asset.
Wow. All right. I like it.
You. But this is a feature, not a bug for these people. Because what's really going on behind the scenes is the Russell Vought, head of the OMB, but former head of the Heritage Foundation, one of the authors of Project 2025. His entire agenda is to try to put the federal government into crisis. He wanted to, in his words, not mine, put federal workers into trauma to get them to leave. And he wants to put the federal government into crisis. What he wants to do is squeeze out the ability for the federal government to pay for the kinds of things that the government should do, the government does do, and that Democrats care about. If we are spending so much money to service interest on the debt, there is no money left over for the programs that actually work, that Americans rely on to live, and that we care about.
Well, what they want to do is they want historical memory to disappear, right? People have gotten used to these programs, and it's why they've tried to cut them. I don't know how many times, and they've failed a lot of these programs.
because of the state, the way that FDR reorganized the state and made it that, yes, government does, there's that really, I know they like to pay attention to the Second Amendment and a few other things, although it's a made up version of the Second Amendment, but we don't need to get into that. But there's this weird, preamble to the Constitution, you'd say. The most important part that they start with that talks about, quote, the general welfare and, quote, domestic tranquility and things of that nature as the basic responsibilities of our government. And FDR expanded upon what the view of that had been. And the view of that was things like Social Security, taking, expanding healthcare. He wasn't able to do the kinds of things LBJ later continued on that with Medicare and Medicaid. But the point being that there was this thought that the government had a responsibility to its citizens. And the thing is, it's not just the decent thing to do. It's the only way a democracy can work. Because if you don't, which these assholes don't seem to get, or maybe they don't care because they'll just fly off to Bermuda in their helicopter or whatever, revolution will eventually come. That's how every story like this ends, when you make people so desperate, so poor, and they look at the people the few. And sadly, that is really the story of most of human history. We don't understand how, America, in a way, invented the middle class and built this enormously vibrant, strong, middle-out economy that led to shared prosperity. I'm not saying we weren't doing anything wrong during those times. Of course we were, but I'm just talking in a general economic sense, and got used to certain programs and all that. And then Europe built upon our model and did better as we started to retreat with Reagan. And that's what they want. If they can starve these programs and take them away, because as of right now, you're like, well, of course I'm getting Social Security. But what they're hoping is in 10 years, people won't remember and be like, oh, I might get Social Security. And maybe 10 years later than that, they'll be like, what's Social Security? I mean, that's what they want.
So one thing, when I used to work on Capitol Hill, I worked for I'm sorry, don't get mad at me. I see in the chats that there has been a little bit of a back and forth between one faction of Democrats, another faction of Democrats. We're all part of the same tent, my friends. I used to work for a member
and we need to be more part of the same tent than ever right now, guys.
Than ever.
Look at what we're up against, honestly.
So I used to work for a member of Congress who was a blue dog. Okay. And the blue dogs, among other things, cared a lot about the budget. And I was handed the responsibility to come up with a proposal for the blue dog budget one year. This was our version, Democrats' version. This was under Republican control, Tom DeLay period. This was our version of the budget. And we were sitting in what I called the blue dog box, because we were stuck. You can't politically propose to cut defense. And by the way, there's a big fat check for defense in here. Not that our military members don't deserve it, but 150 billion.
If you still had a functioning system and both parties were willing to get together and do it jointly, so that no one would take the political fallout from it. But of course, we have one party that isn't a political party. It's an authoritarian cult. So
Agreed.
I just want to make sure.
Here's my point, is that in the blue dog box, politically, you can't cut defense. And so they've given a big boon to defense here. You can't cut Social Security. Not that Democrats worth their salt really want to do that. Can't cut Medicare. And
that's most of the budget right there.
You've got 2/3 of the federal budget. Think about the whole federal budget. 2/3 of it, basically Social Security and Medicare. Basically. 1/3 of it is discretionary spending. That's the 1/3 that's left over. But half of that is defense. So all of the things that we're talking about that are getting whacked here, that are getting cut here, are what's called NDD, non-defense discretionary spending. It's everything else. This is the Russell Vought agenda. This is the feature, not bug, of adding $4 trillion to the deficit. The sneaky agenda here is, of course,
to get to Grover Norquist's event, starving drowning the government in the bathtub thing, is you get there through debt.
It's of course they want to run up the debt, because
did he
purposely
name himself after the evil bad guys in The Boys? Because it seems appropriate. Vought Industries, I don't know if you watch The Boys, but like, they're evil and they're fascist, and he's a lot like Homelander, except for weaker, dumber and wimpier and all that. But
I digress. I find it funny that he has the last name of like literally the evil fascist corporation in The Boys. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing I really wanted to just hammer home here is that we're going to focus, and from a messaging standpoint, we should focus on the healthcare part of this, on the cruelty part of it, on the kids who are going to go hungry, literally because of it. The millions.
That's what I was going to say too. I'm glad you said that, because that to me is the one other component. Healthcare. Yes, it should be the focus, but the side of it is, I mean, and again, you need, for good messaging, you want something repulsive on the other side. You want to starve children to give Elon Musk another pair of yacht slippers. Come up with whatever your other side of that is, but make sure, because in every good story, there is a good guy, there's a bad guy, and there's either what the good guy is doing to make things better or what the bad guy is doing to make things worse. These evil fucks, these inhuman bastards want to go, they want children to, I will go further. They want to let children starve and die so that Elon Musk can get himself another yacht.
And can I give you just one more piece?
That's what happens when you cut snap. Kids die.
And you missed this at the top, so I will say again from a housekeeping standpoint, I have a hard stop in 5 minutes. So we can end in 5 minutes, or
No,
you can...
I'm gonna. I have to, because there's.
All right. So
there's
you and I
SUBSTACK,
are
right,
going to go
stuff.
do our dad duties 5 minutes. But here's what I suggest we end on, because we teased alligator Alcatraz when you came on. I want to talk about that for literally 5 minutes. And here's the argument I'd like to make.
Okay, yeah, I'm interested, because I'll say quickly, I don't even know anything about it except for it's saying.
All right, I'll give people the brief.
Stupid named tough guy, bravado bullshit that like Operation Midnight Hammer. I mean, everything is with these guys is an admission they have small penises, like everything. So
Yes.
I'm not shocked.
So here's the main point I want to make about this. What we should be talking about, Democrats, is costs and healthcare. Costs and healthcare. What's really going on under the surface of the Republican budget is their long-term campaign to starve the federal budget, to put it in crisis, and to crowd out the ability of the federal government to do anything that matters for Americans. What Republicans want to talk about, what they're going to desperately try to change the subject to, is alligator Alcatraz. Not because it's great for them, but because it's polarizing, it's attention grabbing, it shocks the conscience, like all the other shit they're doing.
And it's some of their people that realize that, as you're saying, the polarizing aspect of it is that folks on their side never think that they could end up in a place like that. So they can be like, yeah, put those immigrants and those criminals and those, it gets their mind off of the fact that they're about to lose their health care, that maybe their kids are about to lose their food and all that kind of stuff. So
absolutely. And what's going on, by the way, just a brief on it, is that this is Trump went to the Florida Everglades to celebrate the opening of a controversial new detention center where the cruelty is the point. They call it, the nickname is Alligator Alcatraz. It is a pre-deportation holding facility at a disused airstrip near Miami. It is a vast makeshift campsite built on a tropical swamp, a sea of tents and trailers. Thousands of people will be held in sweltering conditions. The Florida State Attorney General said there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons, because the cruelty is the point. And I have a prediction for you.
And also just because, again, like the symbolism, like of like these kinds of things, snakes and alligators, and I mean, the faux bravado is it's so cringe, and I just don't. I mean, again, I can't understand what it's like to have a brain injury, so I guess I can't be in MAGA. So I can't understand what it's like to be like, oh, that sounds cool, alligators, man, awesome. I mean, it's like these people are again, these are all people that Donald Trump knows how to con, because he conned them for his entire life to buy all of his trash. So,
right, and so I mean, I have a prediction as we get ourselves out of here. When we reconvene on this live stream next week, Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump and the entire MAGA shit show cabal will have done everything in their power to focus media attention on this story. Now, I'm covering it because I'm covering it, right? Like, people are talking about it, the commenters are bringing it up, but I'm doing it in a way to try to inoculate ourselves, because make no mistake, this is just like the LA protests, just like the diversion of the National Guard and the Marines to Los Angeles. This
to
is
take
a
away his
Donald
breakup
Trump
with Elon, and
it is a lab concocted operation to divert our attention onto something horrible that should be talked about. But for them is like the rotating credit card debt of cruelty. They'd much rather that our attention be focused fucking over there than over on the disaster that they're unrolling in Congress for 17 million Americans who are going to lose health care, and for millions of American children, I'm sorry, I don't have the most recent estimate, who are going to lose food. So that is
the individual costs are those, and the broader costs are us as a society, which we've been dealing with years now. Because again, Trump didn't happen by accident, and didn't, Judge Alito, who's a sick human being, was on that court 10 years before Donald Trump ever showed up on the political scene. They have been promoting people of that mentality, cruel, sadistic, corrupt, evil people. And this ends up becoming the end result. And as a society, when they do these kinds of things, what we head into is the situation where a few people at the top have all of the benefits and make all the decisions for everybody else. And again, this story ends the same way every time. It ends like the Russian Revolution or the French Revolution, or pick anyone you want. That's where it ends up when you destroy a middle class, a working class, and you make the vast majority of people. I mean, already I read some study the other day on how they, look at income and whether you have enough income to do what they consider the base sort of things, right? Feed your family, have a home, go on one vacation locally, not even something, big or whatever. And they said that's their base threshold for whether families are at a point economically or where they should be. And 60% of American families are already below that. And this bill will exacerbate that by that much worse. So they've declared war on us. They're trying to kill kids by starving them, and they're trying to kill us by letting us die due to lack of health care. Tell the truth about what it is they're doing. Don't sugarcoat it like corporate media does.
And that's a perfect note to end on. So you have 15 seconds. What do you have coming up tomorrow? What do you have coming up Thursday?
Well, everybody join me here tomorrow. I will be on with David Schuster. May have a surprise guest. We'll see. We've talked with a few folks, not sure yet, but we'll be talking about some of the same stuff. Although, as we all know, a lot will come up, between now and then. But I've reserved, as you've heard earlier, a specific ire for Lisa Murkowski. I'm also going to talk about secret dealings and deals between Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump, and why we may be looking at a whole lot more to come in the Middle East. And then we'll have it Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. It will be amped up with Cliff Schechter. And we had somebody cancel on us, which happens now and again. It was for good reason. So I'll be booking somebody else today, and I'll let you guys know when we do. But the last thing is, remember the Sound Check Fund. We're trying to give money away, guys, to people, and trying to support creators, because having like 50 big voices or whatever, instead of having a lot of smaller, medium voices, others filling in from all sorts of different backgrounds, and having an ecosystem like the right is not working. We need that. So please apply if you want to and you think you can. Please share it. I'll put it in here again with others who might want to apply, because again, it's not always that people often, people out there say, we would like to give you money and promote you.
All right. We, on that note, are out of here. For Cliff, I'm Matt. We will see you next week. Oh, next Tuesday, I've got a really, really outstanding guest. He was once upon a time Chuck Schumer's right-hand man for policy in the Senate. We will have, I think, plenty to talk about.
I'm sure everybody in here is going to, it'll be interesting. That's all I have to say.
It'll be interesting. All right. Take care, everyone.